gonna look like Benavidez. You.
Yeah, one leg.
You gonna look like
Yeah,
him with one leg.
Yeah, one leg.
I'm gonna make you stanky leg. What you wanna bet on?
No, but yeah, it's definitely my call. The ball's in my court. What they say, I'm the A side now.
Errol gave me an opportunity and a shot at becoming the first male boxer, undisputed, in any division in a 4-belt era. And
forget the pound-for-pound rankings and the championship belts. When it comes to real boxing excitement, the kind that draws in hardcore fans and casual viewers alike, the Crawford versus Spence rematch is still the fight that needs to happen. Yes, even more than Crawford versus Canelo.
we signed and contracted to do a rematch, and that's what it is right now.
Do you know when it's going to be, when we can hear?
I don't got no date right now, but I know that's the next fight that Terence Crawford.
For the first Crawford-Spence fight was a beatdown. No spin, no excuses. Crawford gave Errol Spence Jr. the worst night of his career, dropping him 3 times, before stopping him in the 9th round. It was clean, it was brutal, it was historic. But in boxing, a beating doesn't always mean the story is over. Sometimes it just sets up a bigger sequel. And that's exactly what we're seeing now, following their recent face-to-face. With both fighters potentially moving up to 154 and Spence aiming to redeem what he calls an off night, the narrative practically writes itself.
Immediate rematch clause?
I don't know if it's gonna be at 54 or 47, but I'm sure he's probably gonna push the weight up. But there's gonna be no change in the decision. The performance still is gonna be the same. It might be even a little bit better. So he might want to watch out before he activates the rematch clause.
Here's the best part. This rematch could outperform Crawford versus Canelo in every way that truly matters. Post-fight excuses are nothing new in boxing, but Spence has been both calculated and honest in admitting that something wasn't right, leading up to the Crawford fight. He hadn't been in the ring for over a year and was forcing his body down to 147 pounds, possibly for the last time. In fact, he had openly talked about the brutal weight cut even before the fight, saying he was draining himself too much and needed to move up. Even veteran fighters like Sean Porter and analysts like Tim Bradley noted that Spence's body looked off, stiff.
I can't tell you, I wasn't in camp.
At the division, he dominated for his entire career. All of a sudden, when it came time for this fight, he looked different. Why?
I wasn't in camp with him, I can't tell you. I don't know if his body finally broke down from being at 147 for too long. I don't know if it was him flying from Dallas to Las Vegas, which has different heat and temperatures, and losing weight affects your body.
I just want y'all to realize that Errol Spence is the younger fighter between him and Terence Crawford. He's the bigger fighter between him and Terence Crawford.
Now, things will be different. Spence versus Crawford at 154. Both fighters fully rehydrated, no excuses, no built-in advantages. We might finally get the fight everyone expected the first time. Let's call it what it is. Crawford versus Canelo sounds exciting on paper, pound for pound. Star versus pound for pound king, but dig a little deeper and it starts to look more like a sideshow than a true war. Canelo fights at 168. Crawford, until recently, had never fought above 147. That's a 21-pound jump across divisions. And while Terence Crawford is a phenom, Canelo is a tank with serious power at that weight. Crawford's technical brilliance might turn it into a chess match, but the power gap is so...
He gave me that opportunity to fight him. It's only right that if that's what he want to do, I'll give it back to him. Outside of him,
Bob Arum said it best. Canelo is just too big and too strong, and he was promoting Crawford for over a decade. The stakes for a Crawford-Canelo fight aren't organic. There's no grudge, no bad blood. The hype would rely more on manufactured tension and media spin. But with Spence, the tension is real. The stakes are personal, and the fan investment is already built in. Let's talk business. The first Crawford-Spence pay-per-view did around 700K buys, an impressive number considering the event had no crossover appeal like Floyd or Canelo. That's pure boxing interest. Spence has a redemption arc. Crawford has a new belt at 154, and both fighters are healthy.
To make the fight look different in the second time than in the first time. I do believe that, but that's the only thing that I can actually sense because, I will be on the other.
This has all the makings of a 1 million plus PPV fight, especially if they fight in Vegas again or bring it to a packed stadium in Texas, where Spence's fan base is massive. That's more than what most recent Canelo fights have done, especially outside of his trilogy with Triple G. Let's not forget, Canelo versus Jermell Charlo underperformed, barely cracking 600K buys despite huge Showtime promotion. Crawford-Spence has far more emotional weight behind it. Another important detail, Terence Crawford is no longer the quiet, stay-in-his-lane technician he used to be. Since the Spence fight, we've seen a different Bud. He's talking more, cracking jokes, and calling out names.
Who he beat? Undisputed. Look who he beat. Look who he beat. What he did to Spence, and how he did it. That's 3 fights to me. And it took 4 fights out of Spence, right? I'm a fighter, so I can tell you when you get punished like that.
Yeah, I was there ringside watching the fight.
It takes a few years out of you. Don't see the years right now, but it sort of takes something out of that person.
He told the media in early 2024 that Canelo wasn't his priority. He even hinted that a rematch with Spence at 154 was more meaningful. If we do it again, I want to make sure we're both healthy and at our best, so no one can say anything afterward. That's not a guy looking for a payday. That's a guy chasing legacy. Don't sleep on the controversy either. Since the loss, Spence has had to deal with fans claiming he's washed, that the car crash changed him, and that the eye
rematch, you got whooped.
Which rematch?
Crawford
fans, Spence fans, they hold it out. They believe, they man could get it back.
Yeah, that's what makes
heard it all, and now he wants to shut everyone up. Crawford has been accused of beating a diminished version of Spence. Some even argue that the fight shouldn't count as a true showdown because Errol wasn't at full strength. What's the solution? Run it back at 154 with no excuses. That controversy sells, online debates, breakdowns, the hate, it's all fuel. That's what draws people in. That's what Crawford versus Spence 2 delivers in spades.
Challenge yourself to be great. Let him try to be great, so, what I'm saying, I'm with it. So, I'll be going for Bud, if he fight Canelo, I'll be going for him. I mean, I don't know if he's going to win or lose, but I'll definitely be going Crawford, I think.
Errol Spence Jr. remains one of the most talked about names in boxing. Not because of what he's done lately, but because of what might still be left in him, or what might not. Meanwhile, Terence Crawford continues to chase greatness with a possible move to 168 to face Canelo Alvarez. Spence's path, however, looks murkier, caught somewhere between redemption and uncertainty. The Crawford rematch may be the purest choice, but boxing, like always, isn't just about legacy, it's about business. And right now, Oscar De La Hoya wants in on that business, proposing a mega fight between Spence and Virgil Ortiz Jr. in Dallas.
Ortiz versus Errol Spence Jr. in AT&T Stadium. And I want to chime in and talk about it. I think it's kind of irrelevant for Oscar to be.
The idea isn't just promotional fluff. De La Hoya told Fight Hype that he's already eyeing AT&T Stadium, a Texas-sized venue for a Texas-sized fight between 2 Texas-born warriors. And sure, if we're talking gate and buzz, that fight could easily draw 60,000 fans. Spence is still beloved in Dallas, while Ortiz, on the other hand, is that...
Everybody, this is Brian Mazik, a.k.a. Unique Mazik, and it is my pleasure to talk to boxing icon, the face of Golden Boy Promotions, multiple-time world champion, Oscar De La Hoya. How you doing today, Oscar?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir, man. It is a pleasure to talk to you. One of the first things that I want to ask you is talk about Virgil Ortiz Jr.'s performance. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you, Oscar. I expected him to have...
It sells itself, but let's be real. It's also a dangerous, high-risk fight for Spence to return to after a 2-year layoff and a humbling loss that shook his entire aura. Crawford didn't just beat him, he erased him. And that's not hyperbole. He made Spence look like he didn't belong in the same ring. That kind of beating leaves scars, mental, physical, and reputational.
I don't care if it's Boots, I don't care if it's Thurman, I don't care if it's Spence or anybody. Crawford, I really don't care. I would love to fight someone like him. He's a fighter. I don't think of him, he's just, if he fights him, he fights us, whatever.
Virgil Ortiz Jr. isn't just another top prospect. He's a wrecking ball at 23 with 21 knockouts. He's been tearing through competition and finally claimed his big-name scalp with a win over Israel Madrimov. Yes, the same Madrimov who went 12 hard rounds with Crawford at 154. A fight that many, including Canelo Alvarez and Eddie Hearn, thought Bud may have lost. That's where things get messy. If you believe Crawford struggled with Madrimov and Ortiz handled that same fighter with less resistance, then logically, Ortiz is a bigger problem for Spence than some want to admit. De La Hoya probably knows it too. He's not just matchmaking, he's circling the wounded. And right now,
Well, I'm trying to fight the best, but you see that it's not up to, it's not under my control. Like if it was under my control, I would have fought the world champions already at 140. I would have fought him at 147.
Fans might not be clamoring for Spence versus Ortiz just yet, but that could change fast once Canelo fights Skull. If Crawford doesn't get that bout lined up in time, the Spence-Ortiz fight might be the one that gets printed. The risk for Spence is monumental. Ortiz has never faced anyone with Spence's level of experience, but he's young, hungry, and fresh. He throws with bad intentions, and he's not coming off a 9-round beatdown. Spence, by contrast, hasn't been in the ring since
between Virgil Ortiz Jr. and Errol Spence in Dallas Stadium is generating buzz. Spence hasn't fought since his loss to Crawford.
The stakes here aren't just about wins and losses. They're about legacy. If Spence returns and beats Ortiz, his stock goes through the roof, redemption arc complete, and the Crawford rematch becomes even bigger. But if he loses, especially badly, then it's over. No rematch, no big comeback. No soft landing. Just another cautionary tale in a sport full of them. There's a reason why De La Hoya wants to make this fight now. It's not just about timing, it's about opportunity. Catch Spence before he's either retired or rejuvenated.
I don't know if you could come back from it. I just don't know that Spence was young enough to take that kind of beating at this point. That's where you have the question mark. I think if Spence was 25 years old, for argument's sake, you can, that hungry determination can bring you back. But 33, you're rich. You've made a lot of money already too.
And you're rich.
It's a bit tougher, I think, to come back from that.
Meanwhile, across the spectrum, Crawford is catching heat from none other than Canelo himself, who says Crawford doesn't even deserve his undefeated record. In Canelo's eyes, Crawford lost to Madrimov, or at best, it was a draw. Crawford edged Madrimov on the cards, but the performance wasn't dominant. It was awkward, tactical, and lacked the snap we saw in the Spence fight. He won, sure, but he didn't send a message. That's fuel for Canelo, who's making it clear that he doesn't view Crawford as invincible. And let's not forget,
he landed a couple of times at the end of the round where he was trying to steal a round. But I just was trying to counter him, but at the same time, he had a good game plan. He had a lot of feints, and I was just trying to dictate when he was going to come. A lot of times I was wrong. I was touching him up with the jab. I think my jab was beating him up all through the fight, but he landed a couple of right hands.
Crawford batters Spence, gets critiqued for a tough win at 154, and now faces criticism for taking a leap to 168, a jump many say is too big. At the same time, Spence gets clowned for being damaged goods, yet he could walk into a sellout stadium fight against a killer like Ortiz.
I wanted to see that immediately after that fight, but now time has kind of ran its course. I don't want to see Errol. I just don't want to see Errol with them like that. That's all. Yeah, I believe Errol Spence is a generational talent, great fighter. What happened to him against Bud, I don't want to see that.
You don't think he'll put up a better fight this time, man, the second time around?
I don't even believe if they move up.
Crawford isn't just a master technician in the ring. He's also proving to be a master of narrative outside of it. His latest comments, delivered in a relaxed setting with Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo on the Pound for Pound podcast, have sparked a wildfire across the boxing world. When asked about Errol Spence Jr., his former foe and the man he dismantled in July 2023, Crawford didn't hold back. Not only did he assert that Spence isn't Hall of Fame worthy, but he also subtly dragged Spence's resume through the mud, highlighting what he's
right now. No, how he fought in one division. He had a WBC, WBA.
He wasn't undisputed. He
no,
wasn't
no,
undisputed.
he wasn't. No, what I'm saying is they already called him a weight bully. He beat Kell Brook coming off of a loss, an eye injury. He beat Sean Porter.
In all fairness, he had to go over there to get that.
You know what I mean? That's a good win. I'm still a fan. I hope he do well. But like once it got to the point where I moved up in weight and I'm in the same weight as Spence, it's just like, oh man, you ain't fighting nobody. You this, you that, you this, you that. So now they trying to blemish my accomplishment.
He pointed out that Spence had only ever fought in one division, never unified all the belts, and, crucially, never became undisputed. They already called him a weight bully, right? He beat Kell Brook coming off a loss and an eye injury. He beat Sean Porter, Crawford added, dismissing Spence's signature wins as
right now? No, how? He fought in one division. They already called him a weight bully. He beat Kell Brook coming off of a loss, an eye injury. He beat Sean Porter.
In all fairness, he had to go over there to get that.
Like I said, you know what I mean?
He's a three-division world champion. He's been undisputed at 140, and then he went on to become the first male boxer in the four-belt era to become undisputed in two weight classes. By contrast, Spence unified 3 titles at welterweight, but never crossed into new divisions or chased undisputed until Crawford forced that conversation. Still,
he is who he is. You know?
For sure. Rematch?
I like the rematch. I want to know how healthy Errol is, and but I think that a lot of fighters that aren't able to make adjustments in real time, they're able to go back to the gym and right a lot of wrongs.
Spence-Crawford fight was a financial juggernaut with 700K PPV buys and over $59 million generated, plus an extra $20 million in ticket sales. This wasn't just another title unification, it was a mega event, and that kind of money leaves talks. Crawford and Spence both walked away with $25 million each. That's generational wealth, but also for fighters, it's addiction. Because where there's smoke and this much money, there's usually a rematch clause glowing in the embers. And here's where the controversy kicks in. Crawford is smart, too smart to just be throwing out Hall of Fame disses for no reason. This might be less about his genuine opinion on Spence's legacy and more about stirring the pot, fanning the flame.
Just to boost him up. I'm like, dude, you're not gonna do that. Because I can retire right now and be in the Hall of Fame. He couldn't. Everything that I've accomplished, he's still trying to accomplish. I don't want to sound like I'm hating on him. I honestly don't know if he make it to the Hall of Fame with the accolades that he didn't got, right?
Spence has been MIA since the beating. Some call it a humbling, others call it a total breakdown. Rumors swirled about lingering physical issues, particularly concerning his vision and balance. He looked flat, slow, and reactive against Bud, far from the relentless body puncher who broke down opponents like Kell Brook and Danny Garcia. That night in Vegas, Spence got outclassed in every category. Still, he's not.
Terence Crawford in his comments?
Yeah.
About Errol Spence?
Yeah, about the Hall of Fame comment.
Well, that's I mean, look, that's his opinion.
Yeah,
that's how he feels, and that's
what do you think?
No, I think the opposite. I think the opposite.
Okay.
I've came out and I've said that. I came out and I've said that Errol Spence is a Hall of Famer. Okay. You know, in my eyes. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter one division, whatever. 6 years he was reigning, right? Never ducked the big smoke. Finally got in the ring with Crawford.
Crawford-esque comments feel less like closure and more like bait. There's unfinished business. Even if the first fight was one-sided, a rematch still makes money. And if Spence wants redemption, or even just a huge payday to ride off into the sunset, there's only one name on the table. Crawford might be playing chess, not checkers, because what better way to generate buzz than to question Spence's entire legacy? Let's play devil's advocate for a second. Imagine you're Spence. You've had a nearly flawless run before. The Crawford fight, unified belts, headlined PPVs, and built your name fighting legitimate names in the division. Now, Crawford, fresh off chasing a fight with Canelo Alvarez, starts downplaying your entire career. The pride, the ego, it doesn't sit well. That alone could push Spence to demand the rematch, whether he's truly ready or not.